Something is orbiting our planet, an orbit that changes constantly and takes whatever this object is out beyond the orbit of the moon, and then it returns, passing within a few hundred kilometers of our atmosphere. It isn't a meteoroid or asteroid, and it isn't a satellite. Scientists don't know what it is, and its orbit is so bizarre that categorizing it, even though it was discovered over 5 years ago, has been virtually impossible. But there are two things that we know about this object. First of all, it bears a great deal of resemblance to the mysterious interstellar object Oumuamua, at least in regards to its behavior. And number two, astronomers agree that this could not possibly be a natural object. It must be artificial. All of this and more coming at you on a very special Angry Alien Bulletin right now. Good afternoon, alien enthusiasts, and welcome to another Angry Alien Bulletin, once again covering Oumuamua, not something I was anticipating doing, but this was just too big of news to hide from you folks for too long. But in addition to that, I have something else to tell you about the state of the channel. If this is something you're not interested in, then skip to here. Real quick, just need to be honest with you folks. I haven't returned to the UK yet, still here in the United States, and I haven't been completely forthcoming as to why. It's not because I had so many different things that I wanted to accomplish before I returned. It's because, frankly, I can't afford to return to the United Kingdom. And the reason for this is the stuff that I've been talking about all along. YouTube, Google has just been slashing and slashing and slashing the monetization and ad revenues to a degree to where making a living is becoming very difficult every single day. And then this month, the beginning of this month, has been truly cataclysmic. So, as a result, I've had to stay rent-free at my best friend's house here and at my father's place in Colorado Springs as well, wherever possible, until I could get a little bit of capital saved up to go back. All of that having been said, given these massive cuts that I've experienced recently, I'm going to have to focus more on the things that are popular. Videos like this one, or UFO videos, that sort of thing, and space flight and space science are going to take a hit. That's not what I want to do. It's what I've got to do in order to stay afloat. Now, again, this is not some clever ploy to get additional support. I'm just going to go ahead and give you the raw facts here. If I were to get some super chats here and there on my videos, and also perhaps increase my Patreon support by a third to maybe 50%, something along those lines, then this is a decision I wouldn't have to make. It would completely solve my problems, at least for the moment. If that's something you want to do, hit that super chat button, or you can feel free to go into the description. All of the information is there under Patreon, or if you just want to make a one-time donation, Cash App is the best way to do that, because me and PayPal are not exactly on the best of terms at the moment either. But once again, this is my problem, not yours. I only want your support if it's financially convenient for you. If you can't do this easily, then I don't want your help. Please, please don't donate to me unless it's an easy thing for you to do. That's enough of that. Let's talk about Oumuamua. Back in 2019, yes, years ago, before I actually even started my channel, NASA found an interesting object that was orbiting the Earth in a very, very strange way. This object could not possibly be a meteor because its orbit was constantly changing. And that is something a meteor simply cannot do. A comet theoretically can do these sorts of things if you're having lots of outgassing coming from it, pushing it around all the time. But obviously this object wasn't outgassing in any way, and it was a bit too small to be a comet anyway. So had to be artificial. That's the only alternative. But the problem with all of this is, given its orbit, given its trajectory, its orbit was so extreme that it's hard to imagine what sort of man-made object it might be. But there is one thing that it bore a great deal of resemblance to. And that is an object that had been discovered 2 years earlier. An object that, though interstellar, though traveling far faster than this object, exhibited very similar behavior. And that, of course, was Oumuamua. The object is called A10BMLZ, and once again, you need to get used to these sorts of categorizations if you're going to study astronomy. Now, officially, this object falls into a category of objects called empty trash bag objects, as strange as that may sound, and I'm going to go ahead and quote from Avi Loeb's article on the topic from just a few days ago. These are fragments of space debris in near-Earth orbits that are pushed around by solar radiation pressure, similar to an empty, lightweight trash bag tumbling in the wind. ETBOs are often found to orbit the Earth and are considered to be broken parts of rockets or satellites. However, as you're going to find out here in a moment, this strange object might not be either of those. The largest ETBO, often meters in size, are cataloged online. ETBOs are characterized by their high area-to-mass ratio. Some are composed of aluminized plastic insulation and show non-gravitational acceleration from solar radiation pressure. Most of the known ETBOs are in highly elliptical orbits with a period of about 1 day. One had been tracked to have a 2.2-day orbit for 7 years, and few have been discovered in even higher orbits. These orbits suggest that most near-Earth ETBOs are human-made. The name ETBO reflects the fact that solar radiation pressure pushes these objects mostly away from the sun, but sometimes with a time-dependent or sideways force owing to their complicated structure and tumbling motion, like an empty trash bag being blown down the street. These characteristics make it difficult to predict their motion far in advance. In 2019, a strange ETBO labeled A10BMLZ was noticed in an elongated orbit that carried it to a distance of 500,000 kilometers, 1.3 times the Earth-Moon separation, with an orbital period of about 2 weeks. The specific origin of this ETBO is unknown, as it zigzags in unpredictable ways as a result of huge non-gravitational accelerations. If all of this is sounding familiar to you, it should, because the first recognized interstellar object, Oumuamua, exhibited a tumbling motion with a net non-gravitational acceleration that declined consistently with an inverse square law from the sun as expected for solar radiation pressure. A few months after this observational data was reported, I suggested in a peer-reviewed paper that Oumuamua had a large area-to-mass ratio, effectively behaving like an interstellar ETBO. Since interstellar objects originate from outside the solar system, they cannot be human-made. And by the way, this other object may not be human-made either because it is so bizarre. In fact, interstellar ETBOs could be generic signatures of extraterrestrial technological civilizations. The light curve of reflected sunlight from Oumuamua exhibited extreme brightness variations most consistent with a flat, elongated object. As soon as the public and the media paid attention to the suggestion that Oumuamua might be artificial in origin, mainstream comet experts wrote numerous papers arguing that Oumuamua is a comet with an invisible tail. Today, Oumuamua is defined by these comet experts as a dark comet. But what if it instead was an interstellar ETBO? What would be a possible source for it? Now, first of all, as far as dark comets are concerned, we're not even sure if these things exist because a number of dark comets have been misidentified artificial objects that we have sent out to nearby planets. One dark comet actually ended up being a Soviet probe, once again an artificial object being pushed by solar radiation because it's so lightweight. And as of right now, astronomers still can't explain how these dark comets move with non-gravitational acceleration, being too heavy to be pushed by solar radiation alone and not exhibiting any sort of cometary tail or visible outgassing. And by the way, dark comets do not move as much as Oumuamua accelerated out of the solar system. But here's the strange thing about A10b MLZ that has led some astronomers to conclude that it might not be a human-made object. The unusual satellite is trekking around the planet at an almost absurd ellipse, dipping as close as 600 kilometers from the surface and then swinging out to a distance of 538,261 kilometers. This varies all the time, or 1.4 times the average distance of the Earth to the Moon. But here's the big problem with this object. Its orbit is retrograde. That is to say, it is orbiting the Earth in the opposite direction of Earth's rotation. Now, if this were a fragment from an interplanetary rocket or interplanetary probe that was launched years ago, then why would it be retrograde? If you wanted to send something to an interplanetary destination, launching it on a retrograde trajectory would have been one of the most least efficient things you could do. Fighting against Earth's rotation as opposed to working with it is a great way to waste lots of fuel unnecessarily. Now, according to observatories, the Haleakala Observatory in Hawaii was the first to detect the object. The observatory is tasked with detecting near-Earth objects to warn of dangerous chunks that might impact the planet. This particular object, of course, is not dangerous, but it's still, as you can see, very, very weird. According to the Northilt Branch Observatory, it's what is known as an empty trash bag object, but we know that already. It means that it's large enough to be spotted, but it is very light. Scientists at the London Observatory calculated that this object is several meters in width, but it weighs less than 1 kilogram. So most likely, they think that it's a bit of metallic foil flung into space during a rocket launch. But once again, what rocket could it have possibly been associated with? Up to now, astronomers have no guesses at all. This is not, of course, the first empty trash bag object found in orbit, but it's, as I said, possibly the strangest. No other empty trash bag has been seen orbiting so far out. Its current weird orbit is not likely to be permanent. The object has such a small mass that photons emanating from the sun can easily push it around, and for that reason, its orbit will likely change frequently in unpredictable ways, and it could even re-enter Earth's atmosphere and burn up in the coming months. This article is back in 2019, and as of right now, for some reason, this object has not re-entered the atmosphere. Dr. Loeb goes on to propose one possible origin for interstellar ETBOs, and that is debris from broken interstellar probes. After billions of years of travel through the interstellar medium, the steady bombardment by micrometeorites, dust particles, cosmic rays, and gas particles would naturally erode and possibly break an aging interstellar spacecraft like our own Voyager 1, Voyager 2, and New Horizons. The surface layers of a billion-year-old technological probe could be torn apart to pieces, many of which represent surface layers with a large area-to-mass ratio. Some of the pieces may have been pushed out from habitable Earth-like planets after the host stars became bright giants or supergiants, illuminating their surroundings with a radiation pressure that is up to hundreds of thousands of times larger than that of the Sun. Alternatively, Dr. Loeb suggested in a 2023 publication that a megastructure like a Dyson sphere, which is composed of light sails hovering over a sun-like star, would be broken into pieces once the host star evolves into a red giant. Here again, the pieces would have a large area per unit mass, similar to empty trash bags. For these reasons, Dr. Loeb has maintained over the past 7 years the argument that the Emperor Oumuamua has no clothes or cometary tail, like the statement of the child in the folk tale written by Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. I refuse to behave like the adults in the room. My reasoning is simple. Why would comet experts not define the ETBO A10b MLZ as a dark comet? In fact, the same Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii that discovered Oumuamua also found 3 years later an object 2020 SO, which was also pushed by solar radiation pressure and later identified as the Centaur upper stage of the Surveyor 2 lunar spacecraft from a time before Apollo 11, made of stainless steel. But although I find Dr. Loeb's arguments quite compelling, there are a few things about Oumuamua that set it apart from A10b MLZ. It seems much more like an object under intelligent control. For example, when it accelerated out of the solar system, its tumbling didn't change, nor did its trajectory change. It simply accelerated. An uncontrolled piece of space debris subjected to a sudden burst of acceleration from solar radiation or some other cause should have had its rate of tumbling changed by the event, and yet Oumuamua's tumble never changed at all for the entire time that we had it under observation. In addition to that, Oumuamua passed very, very close to the Earth. It passed closer to the Earth than any other object in the solar system, right through the Goldilocks zone of our solar system. What were the odds of that happening purely by chance? If Oumuamua had arrived just a little bit sooner or a little bit later, it would have passed far and away from our planet, but it arrived at precisely the right time to pass very, very close to our planet. Now, to be fair, as you can see from this graph, Oumuamua didn't exactly pass by the Earth at the ideal perigee, but again, very, very close. It might have had limited fuel, or it might have been using a solar sail that could only adjust Oumuamua's trajectory and speed so much before it passed through the solar system. Oumuamua might not have been aware of the exact location of Earth until it was too late to approach at the ideal perigee. But nevertheless, the odds of this happening purely by chance, Oumuamua getting this close, are at least 500 to 1, on top of the odds of the object passing through the inner solar system at all by chance. All of these things very, very interesting about Oumuamua, and once again suggesting an object that's much more under intelligent control than A10b MLZ. All of that having been said, it's worth keeping in mind that according to Carl Sagan, intelligent civilizations have visited our planet at least 10,000 times in the history of our solar system. Based on the probable number of intelligent civilizations in the galaxy and the overall age of our solar system. If intelligent civilizations have paid us a visit 10,000 times, there's a very good chance that some of their debris or leftover satellites, something along those lines, might still be orbiting our planet, because after all, our planet was probably the most interesting to alien visitors for millions, if not billions of years. And by the way, if you'll excuse one more piece of shameless self-promotion, I just got an email showing me the final version of our Oumuamua design for shirts and hoodies. Check it out. I think it's incredible. If you're interested in it, check the description, or the store is also pinned in the comments. So here's my question. Why has this fallen out of the news since 2019? Near as I can tell, I did a lot of research on this. This object is still out there. It hasn't fallen into the atmosphere as many astronomers thought it would. It's still floating out there in this strange extreme orbit, sometimes going far beyond the orbit of the moon and then coming back again to within a few hundred kilometers of our planet. And again, it seems to be subject to solar radiation, its orbit changing continuously. And then, of course, most importantly, because we know it must be an artificial object, given the fact that solar radiation is having such a massive impact on its behavior, how can we possibly say that Oumuamua was natural? Given its behavior, it did precisely the same things that this object is doing, with one exception. it seemed to be far more under control than this object is. If this object is a piece of space garbage, perhaps a piece of alien space trash left over from a visit long ago, well, then Oumuamua is definitely an alien spacecraft, accelerating on its own, maintaining its course, and most importantly, maintaining a constant tumbling without that ever changing either. How can any of that be natural? And of course it can't. And that's why, as I said in this video, the whole empty trash bag theory, well, that's the only explanation for objects like this. Because obviously meteors and asteroids cannot be impacted by solar radiation to this kind of extreme degree. And so if these objects are artificial because of this behavior, then why the hell isn't Oumuamua artificial? And of course, there are so many other reasons that Oumuamua must be artificial that I went over briefly in the video and I've covered very extensively in previous videos. And yet, we continue to cling to the notion that not only do we believe that Oumuamua was a natural object, not only do astronomers continue to insist this, they also say that that's definitely the case. It definitely wasn't an artificial object. It definitely was a natural object, and it's so silly and irresponsible for any astronomer such as Avi Loeb to say otherwise. This is so narrow-minded. It is so utterly absurd to keep clinging to these ideas when they clearly aren't true, and for the media to continue to support these ideas that clearly aren't true. As I say, very similar to the whole UAP UFO phenomenon. We continue to deny these things because when it comes right down to it, at the core of our being, we do not want to accept that there might be another intelligence, another civilization, another culture, more advanced, and perhaps a lot wiser than us. Thanks very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, I talked about supporting me at the beginning, so I won't go over that again. But thanks again for watching. And until next time, stay angry about space.